Okay, so I'll start with introductions then. So everyone, thank you so much for coming on. My name's Alex Wilson, broker, owner, and team lead of AlexJWilson.com and Remax Wealth Builders Real Estate. Beside me, whichever way it is on your screen, Kyle DeVici, co-founder of Remax Wealth Builders Real Estate and also an investment expert. And below us, or again, however it is on your screen, we have Amit, our mortgage professional, was the top producer by volume for all mortgage brokers in Ontario for 2018, 2019, also a condo investor wise. And he works with top agents like Kyle and myself across Toronto wise, providing mortgages for condo investors. He's an expert on helping people build a multi-million-dollar condo portfolio wise, and he has solutions for everyone's need. And you'll see that, and we'll get more into detail on that throughout the presentation wise. So to give you guys an agenda wise, I'll give a quick opportunity for Kyle and Emma to give a brief bio on themselves. Then I'll jump into my presentation where I show people my personal portfolio, how I grew it from an initial condo in the West Queen West area, which I bought with a small down payment of $39,900. I can't remember what it was, 39, something like $1,000, and then grew it to what I have today, and just show you step by step how I did that using refinancing. Anyone can do it, but the key thing is you need your mortgage professional. The mortgage professional is the one that's going to allow you to do that, because it's leverage that allows you to do that. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it with the going through my whole portfolio, how we did it wise, and then we'll open up to a question and answer period where we can go over your questions wise. If you do have any questions, ask it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So start off, Kyle, why don't you give a quick bio and introduction to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Kyle DeVici. I'm a co-founder of Remax Wealth Builders Real Estate. Before my real estate career, I was actually working for the Provincial Lottery Corporation. So I used to run Lotto 649 and Lotto Max, the actual draws. So this allowed me to see firsthand the difference between gambling and investing, and really led me to my real estate investing career. And, it made me want to work with other investors and people to actually build their wealth versus trying to gamble, in different avenues. So I now own 4 different investment properties, including my home here as well, and looking to grow my portfolio every single day using the methods that we're going to talk about today as well.
And what are your degrees in?
In computing and business. I have 2 degrees.
And where are you from?
Sudbury originally. Alex and I actually went to high school together, so we go back a long ways.
Yeah, and the relevance to why I say where Kyle's from, I just wanted to show that this is not a generational wealth thing where we grew these portfolios. I came from a small town. I thought Sudbury was a big city, but relative to Toronto wise, we just came from small communities and built it up. Same thing with Amit wise. He came from London, Ontario, and build up what he has in Toronto. So speaking of that, segue wise, Amit, why don't you give a little background on yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex. Pleasure to be here with you guys. My background is, from London, Ontario. Went to York University, did a business degree there. Worked as an accountant at KPMG and Deloitte for many years. Learned how to count other people's money. Then I figured we should do it for ourselves. So got into the mortgage business back in 2008, pretty much around the time when we met. I think we were both getting started. And
the key thing, what happened in 2008? And
the crash, the financial crash.
We both started in the financial crash. This is not we started in the boom times of real estate wise. No. We started at the bottom.
We almost started like if people are starting now during COVID. It was identical. Yeah. It was horrendous. The US was crashing. People had no money. Stock market was in the tubes. It was a tough time, I remember. So, started back in 2008, have my own team and staff now. And like you said earlier, we can jump into it later through questions. The phrase that I have for everybody is everyone can get a mortgage, just depends which bank and which lender and what rate. That is essentially the crux of it, because there's more than just TD and Scotia and BMO on the street. There's like 45 different banks in Canada.
Yeah, that is the best line to use, because one of the objections we constantly get is, well, I don't know how I'm going to get a mortgage. And if you go to your branch level and deal with someone at the branch level wise, again, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But when you're getting into building a portfolio and using leverage wise, the person at the branch level is not equipped to build out the proper structure to set up your portfolio in the right way, or even that specific bank may not have the lending practices to allow you I shouldn't say may not have the underwriting practices, better, may not have the underwriting practices to allow you to build the portfolio you need to do. So again, we're going to get that. You're going to see more exposure to that when we answer questions wise. But that's why you always want a trusted mortgage professional on your side.
Just to hammer that point home, when I worked at TD for many years when I started in the mortgage business, and every 10 clients I got, I could only help 6. The reason is TD's policies aren't built to help everyone. So now being a broker, when I get 10 clients, I can help all 10. And the difference comes down to, I don't think it has to do with the politeness or the nature of the person at the branch or the bank. It's a simple challenge. They are a single brand. They represent Royal Bank or National Bank or TD Bank, and those are the only policies they're aware of, because those are the only policies they have to know. The difference for us is we have to know the policies at almost every lender. So when I look at a client's summary position, when I'm asking questions, I'm not thinking about where to send them. I'm thinking about, let me find out everything about the client, and then we figure out which bank fits. It's the other way around.
Yeah, and I had a mortgage rep at TD Wise, and he ended up quitting once the stress test was initiated. I think he lasted another 6 or 8 months, and then he just quit because he couldn't deal with the red tape anymore, the back end of TD, and he left the business altogether. He's not in mortgages anymore, because he's like, this is. I'd have people come to me, they'd apply, I go get to the underwriters, they take forever. And when they eventually came back, they either got approved or didn't approve, but the person ended up moving on by that point anyways wise. And that's what you're restricted to when you work with the individual branch level wise. So that's why, again, Amit's not going, he needs to interview you first, find out what your circumstance is, and then put you in the right situation. And that's how you build the portfolio. So I'm going to jump into the presentation wise. So why do you want to maximize your real estate portfolio wise? Well, your equity in your property is dead money. So what that means is that, yes, let's say you bought and I'm going to use condos for example. Let's say you bought a condo for $300,000. It's worth $600,000 now. That's great, but that buildup of appreciation of $300,000. You're not making the only return you're making on that is the money that you're getting in monthly rent. And that's not a terribly great return because you haven't factored in the leverage component wise. So that money is really dead money. You're not using it for anything else. And the only way to access that money traditionally is to sell the property. You sell the property and then you get the money, but at that point you pay taxes and everything like that. So what you want to do is use the equity. So you use other people's money to expand your portfolio. So this is where you would go to someone like Amit Wise and go, hey, I have this condo. I bought it for $300,000. My mortgage on it is $200,000. It's worth $600,000. Can I increase my mortgage on this property? And basically other people's money is the bank's money. And then when you leverage that equity, you invest that in other money making assets. You also want to make sure you're paying the right and lowest interest rate for your circumstance wise. There's times when you use a home equity line of credit, and there's times when you use a refinance. Home equity line of credit, you'd be using it for investment wise if you're using your principal residence to invest, so the home you live in. Or let's say you're in a 5-year fixed rate mortgage wise that you signed last year, and it's cost prohibitive for you to break that mortgage and go into a new mortgage. And at that time, you may want to use a home equity line of credit which are incredibly affordable right now to invest in other assets. And in the Q&A, we'll get into, yes, you can use a home equity line of credit to buy investment properties, but we'll talk more about that later. So what I focus on with my portfolio is the cash flow management, and I call it the Goldilocks method. So too much positive cash flow, it just gets taxed away. You could have increased the equity in the property to purchase more investment units. So what I mean by that is, again, going back to that example, you bought a condo for 300, mortgage is 200, it's worth 600. You probably are generating significantly monthly cash flow on that property, but that cash flow is taxed at 100% in your personal income wise. So if you increase the leverage on the property, so increase the mortgage on the property, you are going to increase your interest expense. But that interest expense is 100%, you can 100% write that interest expense off against the cash flow coming in. So we're going to reduce the cash flow by increasing our interest expense. And what we've now undone is we've unlocked the equity in the property. So you can take out, let's say you take out $200,000, you take that $200,000, which the rent on the property can sustain through the cash flow can sustain that, and then you reinvest that $200,000. And now what you have, you can turn that one condo into 2 or 3 condos wise. So instead of one condo going up in value, you have 2 to 3 condos going up in value. And then where you get the multiplier effect, you do the same thing down the road on those 2 to 3 condos, and they grow and they grow and they grow, and you'll see how I've personally done that. But you don't want to go in too much negative cash flow. Too much negative cash flow exposes us to risk. If we're not able to maintain our monthly obligations, we can put ourselves in a situation where we have to sell. So you only lose money in real estate when you sell. So don't sell. And what I mean by that is never put yourself in a situation where you have to sell the property. If you can always ride out the waves, but if you have to sell it at the bottom wise, then that's when you expose yourself to potential risk. So I will have people call me and go, "Hey, Alex, I want to buy a condo pre-construction wise, but I have zero intention to own it, and I want to sell it on assignment before I close wise." And I caution against that. I say, yes, there's an assignment clause, but use that as an exit strategy if you absolutely require, but you'll always make more money by buying and holding the real estate wise. So I'm all about buying and holding long-term wise, because that is going to make you the most money. So that's where we get to our Goldilocks method, the neutral cash flow. So focusing on getting to a neutral cash flow level, which minimizes our taxable rental income and efficiently uses the equity by maximizing the number of investment properties we own that are appreciating in value and having equity pay down. Because also remember, when you put a tenant in the property is going to go up in value over time, but that tenant is also paying down that mortgage, and that mortgage payment is made up of interest payments and equity pay down, paying down the principal wise. So just by the nature of having a tenant in the property wise, your mortgage will be paid off, and someone else is paying it off, not you. So now I want to show you how I've actually done that, because it's great to see an example like this can actually be done. So my original condo, my very first investment condo, and now my portfolio is at 16 properties wise. My very first investment condo bought for $262,400 in December 2012. So 8 years ago. Current market value, I did these calculations in 2018. You know, like Alex, is 2020. Why haven't you changed it? It's actually helpful to see what I did in 2018 for a calculation wise, because when I show you my pro formas on things going up in value wise, you can see that my calculations have actually they've actually been exceeded. So it helps show that example. So like you can literally look at a video wise on YouTube where I've posted this video, and these are the numbers in there. And then our numbers have exceeded on the appreciation side on these properties. So the current market value, $500,000. Current mortgage in the property, $202,000. So the market rent on the property was $2,100. So that means I could sustain a refinance. I was in a cash flow positive situation. So I go to someone like Amit. I'm like, Amit, my condo is worth $500,000. I have a mortgage of $202,000 on it. can I extend my leverage? He goes, yes. The bank is going to give you an 80% loan to value on the property. So what 80% loan to value means is that most banks will require you to maintain 20% equity in the property wise. So if you take the current market value of 500,000, you multiply that by 80%, so they'll give you a loan up to 80% on the property, the current market value wise. That means I have $400,000 remaining of refinance available. So I have to pay off the existing mortgage, which was 202, and what that leaves me is with over $197,000 of money that I can reinvest, which I did. So then I reinvested that money. I bought 2 more pre-construction condos. I bought one at 75 the Esplanade, and I bought one at Canary Block. And those went up in value. So the one at 75 the Esplanade went up 102,000. The one at Canary Block went up 171,000. That total appreciation is $320,000, which is absolutely fantastic wise. So those have gone up in value. But that is still not you may be, Alex, that's exciting, 320,000. That's great. You want to cash out. But we're not even at the exciting part yet. What happens over 5 years? So if I'm assuming a 5% annual compounded growth rate, where the average appreciation rate for downtown Toronto condos has been 9.4% over the last 5 years, but we like to keep it conservative, 5% annual compounded growth. So the Carnaby condo in 5 years, so this is in 2023, expected value is $638,000, plus you have equity pay down over the 5 years of $44,000. I get another $282,000. So that condo is worth $282,000 more, but so by keeping that condo. Then 75 the Esplanade, that keeps on going up in value. My 2023 value is now $616,000, less my 2018 value of $483. I make another $133,000. And then my Canary Block condo, that continues to go up in value. My 2023 value is $957, less my 2018 value is $750. I gain another $207,000. So my total gain by keeping these 3 properties from 2018 to 2023 is $622,000. Plus, remember, I guess you can't see my finger, but remember, by initially investing in those 2 pre-construction condos, their initial bump was $320,000. So 320 plus 622 by owning the 3 condos is a total gain of $943,000. $943,000 by owning the 3 properties. If I didn't leverage the portfolio, again, Carnaby still goes up in value, so it'll be $622,000. Plus, I get my equity pay down of $22,033. My before tax cash flow is $40,180. And why the equity pay down is different on the 2 numbers, if you're wondering why, it's because I increased the debt, the leverage in the first example why. So that's naturally by my monthly mortgage payments, I'm going to be paying down. But that's where I get that back on the cash flow wise. So I do get positive cash flow over that 5 years of additional $40,180. So if I don't leverage the property, I get $185,364. So my leverage versus my unleveraged, my total gain over 5 years without leverage, 185. My total gain with leverage is $943,000. So that's a difference of $757,000 by leveraging the first condo. That is the value of leverage wise. So yes, you can have 1 condo and it's going to go up in value, but that's not going to build you generational wealth. That's not going to build you financial freedom. You need to leverage. You need 2 things. You need leverage and time in order to build financial freedom. And you're going to see why leverage and time can truly build you financial freedom. This is just a small sample size of the portfolio. But what I did is I just didn't do this once. I did this multiple times. And that's why I now have 16 properties. So which portfolio obviously would you prefer? Now, this is where time is important. So if we look at all the properties I've bought over the last 8 years when I started this whole process wise, all through leverage, using leverage, refinancing, everything like that. What I look at, what's my portfolio going to be worth in 30 years? Why do I care what it's worth in 30 years? Is that over 30 years, simple math wise, all my mortgages have 30-year, will have 30-year amortizations on them. That means, oh, in 30 years, if I don't do anything and the market goes up 3%, not even 5 anymore, at 3% compounded annually, my total portfolio will be worth $33 million. If I just do nothing, I do nothing. I just stop right now. I do nothing wise. I built this up using leverage by leveraging other properties. And then I have the tenants that pay these off all over time. The whole portfolio in 30 years will be $33 million. Now, my background is in economics and finance. I like taking conservative numbers and I like giving you the real picture. So that $33 million, there is inflation. That's not $33 million in today's dollars. So it's the question you always need to ask, what's that in today's dollars? What's my purchasing power? So what I did is I actually went to the Statistics Canada website, and there's an inflation calculator. So what I did is I went back 30 years and I said, well, what's $33 million? What would my purchasing power be in 1990? So 30 years ago. So $19 million. So basically, your portfolio in 30 years, or my portfolio in 30 years, I will have the equivalent of $19 million of purchasing power today. So that means I have $19 million in 30 years, in today's dollars in 30 years. So, and I've done nothing. I've just leveraged, I've used other people's money, and then I put tenants in the property that pay down the mortgage over time. It's simple, it's boring, but you have to factor in that when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, shelter, food, warmth are the three things, fundamental things that humans need for survival wise. Not just humans, animals, any creature wise. They're looking for those three things. So you're investing in one of the aspects that people fundamentally need to live. And you're buying and you're holding that over time. And that's why I love investing in real estate wise, because no matter what trends are, no matter what tastes are, people will always need a roof over their heads. And
I think if you take
anything
that,
on that.
I was going to say, if you take that concept, even in COVID now, real estate is quite busy. So it hammers your point home that regardless of trends, real estate is here to stay. It doesn't really matter what's going on.
Yeah, like we can say Kyle and I have been very busy on the real estate side. I know you've been very busy on the mortgage side. Other than when things completely shut down, which there was a pause because people need time to figure things out. Historically, they need 21 days to figure something out. So April was your 21-day period figuring out what was going on in the world wise, and then people adjusting to the new normal. So that's where you saw things shut down for the month of April was. But throughout COVID, people needed places to live, and people readjusted their living habits. But people fundamentally need roofs over their head, and people always need roofs over their head. And that's the key thing as well. And if you're investing in Toronto is always going to be there. You're investing in a fundamental market wise. For those who have been following me, you know I'm very bullish on the Calgary market wise. We've been doing webinars on Calgary and why we think Calgary is right for growth wise. So the one thing is, when I started this journey, and Kyle started the journey with me at the same time as well, because we bought in the same building wise, I can't get you a condo in Toronto with a deposit of $39,000. That opportunity is now gone. But that's where we see Calgary as the opportunity was. Calgary is kind of our first investment condo 8 years ago, because Calgary has the price points wise and the positive cash flow to allow people to jumpstart their growth portfolio wise. So that's where we see opportunity in Calgary wise. And it depends on how you want to build your portfolio. But if you're buying in major centers that are AAA locations wise, you're going to be fine. And Kyle, why don't I get you to tell the story of the Portuguese immigrant? Because if you guys, why tell the story about the Portuguese immigrant wise, which we have a whole video on, which was picked up in the Toronto Star. But it just tells a story. If you're like, Alex, I don't believe your numbers, 16 properties, $33 million. That's ridiculous. That can't happen. This year. Tell the story of the Portuguese immigrant, Kyle.
Yeah, exactly. And the story really demonstrates that anyone can implement the tactics and procedures that we're recommending here. So this gentleman, came from Portugal with really nothing about 50 years ago. And he spent that time then working as a TTC bus driver. So, a good job, but definitely not a finance banker making, incredible salary. It was a working person salary. And what he did with his money is he continued to buy real estate over the years. Every couple of years, he would buy another property, then another property. He ended up with a $15 million real estate portfolio. I think he had like 10 different properties in one location that he was just continually buying up. And it shows the real long-term benefit of this strategy and how you can build generational wealth by slowly investing in real estate over time. He spent 30 years doing it and had an incredible portfolio at the end of it. And we think anyone can start doing this today and have similar results as well.
Yeah, and he, if you look at that time period, there was ups and downs and everything like that, but he bought
some of the worst crises that the Toronto real estate market have ever seen happened during that time as well. But you just hold your properties, you ride it out.
Because what the key thing is that even during a downtime, you're going to have a tenant in the property because they need a roof over their heads. And that tenant in the property is going to pay the mortgages down. And we just went through a horrible time because we also own a property management company as well. We deal all the rentals, we do everything. So we're on the ground, we see what happens wise. And even though the government said the tenants don't have to pay their rent, tenants paid their rent. There are some stragglers that we get rent on the first of every month. No, we did not get rent on the first of every month, but by the end of the month, we had everyone pay. And there's only one property which has been non-payment wise, but that issue existed post-COVID. It has nothing to do with COVID. There was issues with the property beforehand, and we didn't put the tenant in, so it wasn't us. But even during what I've seen in my entire career in real estate wise, the worst rental crisis, it hasn't been that big of an issue at all. Yes, rents have gone down, but tenants paying, they've always paid by the end of the month wise, and that's all about putting the right tenant in and everything like that. And we're not. That's April's webinars. You can go to our website, watch April's webinars. But during the downtimes, you still have tenants living in the property. They still need roofs over their heads, and they're still paying their rents on their properties wise. So that's the key thing. You weather out the storms. And why this article in the paper? This Portuguese man recently passed away, and his properties are they're on MLS right now. And you see them actually for sale wise. His estate's up for sale, so that's why the newspaper article came out. But Kyle and I thought it was a great example of someone starting with nothing, getting the TTC job as a bus, that kind of thing, and just building his wealth slowly over time and using leverage and everything like that to buy the properties. Now, why we actually now he bought freehold properties. So he would have had a more active management in what he was dealing with wise. But we focus on condos because they're concrete boxes in the sky. I think they're much more scalable because your issues that you deal with on a condo versus a freehold property are much, much, much less. So that's why we focus on the condos wise, because you have a building that's fully managed for you. You don't need to worry about the actual exterior of the property wise. And then from the interior wise, it is that concrete box. So there's very minimal issues that can go wrong in the interior of the unit wise. And when being a homeowner, I'm sure there's many homeowners on here, I shouldn't say homeowners, house owners. Sometimes we get feedback from people going, oh, but condos have maintenance fees. If you go and just amortize the cost of the repairs that you spend on your house wise over the last 10 years, I can tell you it'll be very close to the number that you pay in a monthly maintenance fee. The only difference between a condo and a house wise on the rental wise is that condos it's a forced savings for the repairs that you just save every month. That's what the maintenance fee is, versus the shock payments, I like to call them, when you own a house wise. That's really the only difference if you actually sit down and do the math.
There's actually an industry calculation that says most people think out of 12 months of rent, they keep 12 months. It's actually 10 and a half, because 1.5 months is all of those maintenance costs you just mentioned in a home.
Yeah. And I would say, like, owning a house wise, the stress of getting all that stuff repaired wise and dealing with contractors and everything like that. And you don't have that with a condo. Again, if you got to get an appliance repairman, you got to get an appliance repairman in. But an appliance repair is an appliance repair. A bust pipe on your water tank wise, that's, I say this because that happened to me. That's a different story wise. Or if your basement's leaking and you got to do waterproofing wise, there are so many different things. And then knowledge of the contractor is actually doing the proper work wise. You don't have that with condos. So I think even the peace of mind aspect, and being a background of opportunity cost wise, that you just look at, I don't have to deal with things and everything like that. So I can ramble on and on and on, but we should probably go in the question and answer period so we can start answering people. And I know Amit's probably already been answering them via email, being typed wise. Yes, I like this. Okay, so I know I'll go back to the answered ones, just because I don't think these are seen by everyone. So I'll repeat the question wise, and then answer them for the people. Do you need licenses, certification to follow these processes? No. Like, licenses, certification? I'll see what Amit wrote. No, there we go. No license certification to buy, sell, or refinance or get mortgages. Need savings and down payment and income of some sort. Yep. And there's no license to do this. Now, is there a license to sell real estate? Yes. Is there a license for Amit to deal with banks and deal with mortgages? Yes. So we're the professionals that are license wise. So there are licenses required for what the services that we offer wise. But for you to do the leveraging by owning a property and everything like that and going to get the mortgage, there's nothing that's required there. Joseph, I currently own 4 units. I live in 1 and rent 3. I want to continue investing and leveraging my assets, but my number one challenge is my income is low. Can I still leverage the 3 units that are rented? The answer is yes. Yes, you can, as Amit says. So again, when you get into those specific cases wise, and I've seen it, I've had people come to me and go, I love what you say, Alex, but I've been told, no, I can't do it. Then I refer them to Amit and things happen because he knows, again, how to structure the portfolio and go to the right people wise and teach you how to do it. What we're doing is we're basically all investment bankers. So the idea is you're making money on the spread. As long as your interest costs are lower than the income coming in, or your rate of, as long as your interest costs are lower than your rate of return, that you're in the positive, you're making money. So that's the idea of making money on other people's money. So you have to make sure your rate of return exceeds your interest expense wise. And that's where Amit can help you structure that and get you the leverage that you need to continue to grow the portfolio. Julie was on Tuesday as well. Hi, Julie. So Julie writes, if you have a closed mortgage to refinance, we will need to pay 3 months penalty to break the original mortgage. Is it worth it? It completely depends. Again, talk to Amit wise. There is mathematical calculation to determine if it makes sense to do the refinance at that time. Again, if it doesn't make sense to refinance, you can use the home equity line of credit option instead of the second mortgage. And Amit will talk to you, but if it doesn't make sense to break your mortgage wise, you have a home equity line of credit option or a second mortgage. If it's an A lender and putting another A lender behind another A lender, there are different things you can still do without breaking the mortgage wise and still tap into the equity wise. And again, by having Amit on your side, he can help you navigate those things. Just because you have a 5-year fixed rate closed mortgage wise doesn't mean you cannot tap into the equity wise. There are ways still to do that. Okay, how much is the mortgage brokerage fee if we use Amit's service? I think, yeah, it depends. It depends on the institution that.
Just to answer that, there's usually no brokerage fee if we're dealing with regular banks like
Exactly.
National, Scotia, CIBC, etc. Brokerage fees kick in when you're dealing with like level 2 banks, like some of the credit unions and stuff.
Mhm.
And just to hammer into that, I think it's a great question because there's a lot of negative vibes in the broker industry because a lot of people who are mortgage brokers, I find overall don't have the knowledge across all the banks. And so because of that, they get into a position where they keep sending everybody to the same lender because either it's easy or they've gotten used to charging fees. I think what makes it comfortable for the client is, again, analyzing the situation and doing what's right for the customer. I'll give you an example. Um, as mortgage brokers, generally we can make more commission by putting people in fixed mortgages. And I don't like fixed mortgages. I tell people to go variable because of all the investor options that exist. And so I think it comes down to the bias of the individual you're dealing with. So to answer the brokerage fee question, generally it's not required, but if it is, it would be a conversation I have with you up front to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into.
And Amit,
Yeah.
those are the bank's fees, not your fees, correct?
Yes and no. So when you're dealing with credit unions and they call them B lenders, there are fees that we have to take on behalf of the bank. But again, it's case by case. If we're dealing with the standard lenders like Royal Bank and BMO and CIBC, there's never any fees. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's if you're getting into a broker fee situation wise, you're getting in basically the next level of growth of leverage and financing wise, which isn't a bad thing. It just means you just hit the next level where you need to explore different options. But again, if it's an A level bank wise, then you're not dealing with it. But if you're in that second tier, that means you can't get a mortgage with the A level bank, which means that your only way to grow would be pursuing these other institutions for mortgages wise.
And
So
just to add some accounting twist to it, like people get concerned with going to credit unions, you know, the rate can be different by 0.5% or 1%, or there's fees or anything like that. Remember, you get to write everything off. So there are tax implications where it's costing you money up front, but it's saving you money when you file your taxes.
yeah, and ultimately look at it, again, if you're doing that wise, you're usually making more money on the other end as well. So, Jason, you mentioned 5% down for properties in Calgary. Yeah, so we have a project we're promoting wise where they're offering 5% down. As well, you would have a 5% down. You'd secure the unit with 5% down now. The building's expected to be completed in summer 2021. So at that time, if it's an investment property, you have to bump up to 20% down. And with those properties, you get a 3-year rental guarantee, which actually, Jason, that's a great question. That's your follow-up question. When applying for a mortgage, will they take into consider the 3-year rental guarantee? And I'll actually clarify this more what the rental guarantee is. It's actually a lease back. So it's a set amount that the builder actually leases back. So it's a guaranteed income stream. We call it a rental guarantee, but it's actually a lease back program wise. So you'll have a 3 years of rent guaranteed wise.
And so just going back to this question, I love the rental guarantee concept. When we're dealing with banks, some banks will not give you a mortgage if they know there's a rental guarantee. So just to pick on a bank, for instance, TD, not that they don't do it, just to pick on it for an example, TD won't do a mortgage on a rental guarantee program, but maybe RBC will or Scotia will. So that's where having access and knowledge of every bank kicks in, because you could walk into your TD off the street and they decline you, and you think you just can't get the mortgage when it's actually just a bank policy and you just need to walk to some other lender.
Perfect. Another a great question from Ashwani. If we take home equity on existing property, will it affect my ability to take a mortgage on the new investment property as this line of credit will show on my credit rating?
The answer is yes and no. So most banks will use unused line of credits against the client. However, there's a lot of banks that don't. So again, for instance, TD Bank is notorious for using unused lines of credit as used to make sure that the ratios work. And for example, CIBC and Scotia don't do that. So the answer is it can affect you, but it shouldn't, because you just need to go to a different bank.
I'm going to ask a question before we get to the next one, because this is a question that was asked to me last week was, how many properties can a non-resident get mortgages for?
Is that for me?
I'll give you some background on this. This individual was told that they could only have 2 properties with mortgages on them in Canada-wise. They're currently living in California and earning income in California. They are a Canadian citizen and everything, just non-resident now in California.
So to answer that question again, going back to CIBC, BMO, Scotia, their policies do stipulate that you can't have more than 2 properties per person. However, a lot of banks, it's 2 properties per bank per person. So if you're maxed out at Scotia, you move over to BMO. If you're maxed out at BMO, you move over to CIBC. Now, at some point, the bank will say, okay, you have too many properties. And I have so many clients like that. I just did a mortgage for a client from Dubai. He's purchased his 7th or 8th property. He has no Canadian residency. All we had to do was go to a credit union. They did the deal. It's a slam dunk for them. Now, the question is, why is a credit union doing it and not the regular banks? Well, credit unions are there to fill a niche, right? As I said in the beginning, everyone can get a mortgage. It just depends at which bank and what rate. That holds true always.
Yeah, and all it is why some banks will give mortgages and some banks don't. It's all how they manage their risk. The interest cost associated with a property is just the risk that the rate of return is the amount of risk that they associate, and that's the interest they charge now. So if the credit unions, like the big banks aren't doing it, but will do it wise, they just see an opportunity in that market, and they know that, okay, just because this example for this guy lives in Dubai, the bank still believes in the Toronto real estate market wise, and they know that there's rent associated with it. So it's like, I'm not that worried about it. So we'll continue to give the mortgages wise. So that's all banks are doing. So now going back into the questions here, I'll be 64 this birthday. Is there generally an age that you advise people to stop investing? I have people tell me I should not be looking at investment properties anymore. I will say it just depends on what you want to do. So would my mom, who's a similar age to you, buy investment properties now? She's told me she will not, because she doesn't want to, she believes in the real estate market, but she doesn't want to invest in real estate wise in her period in her life wise. But I have other people that are in their 70s that are still buying investment properties because they have a passion for it and they love it wise. So I guess the answer to the question is, if you love investing in this asset class, and you have the ability to and if you have the ability to continue investing in this asset class, and it doesn't impact the lifestyle you want to live post 64, I think it's up to you what you want to do. And Mikhail, you can add your own answers to that as well.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it, Alex. Ultimately, it's all about your personal preferences and where you are in life. The other thing to factor in is, hopefully you're going to live for another 30, 40 years. And that's actually the investment time horizon for a lot of condos as well. So it could be a part of your investment portfolio, or you could even be, setting your kids up for success if they don't have it, or your grandkids.
Yeah, it just depends on what structure you want to have. I'm sure, Amit, you probably have many people that are in their 60s that are still buying properties.
Yeah, all the time, and given that the baby boomer generation is literally here now, in my opinion, a lot of the average population is over 55. People don't stop buying properties. Banks cannot age discriminate as long as you have pension or income. you can still get a mortgage. Now there's a new concept that's come to market in the last few years, which, you know, in 10 years I did 2 of these deals, and now I do maybe 2 a month, and it's called a reverse mortgage. So for people that are over 55 years old, in a nutshell, the bank will just give you a mortgage just based on your age. You can either take it as a lump sum, or they can pay you every month like a salary. It's called a reverse mortgage. It's for people over 55. So no, people don't stop, and there's tons of options available.
Next question. Great question. We love this question. How many properties can a resident of Canada accumulate? When is a holding company a good idea? So let's start with the first part of the question. How many properties can a resident of Canada accumulate? Amit, I'll let you go ahead and answer that one.
So prior to 2017, when the stress test came in, it used to be 5 properties per bank. After the stress test of 2017, it kind of became 5 properties total in general. However, that rule can be broken to go up to 8. Some banks will do 12. I think once you hit the 10 and 12 mark, that's when you have to start looking at ulterior options like credit unions and possibly putting it in holding companies and stuff like that. But generally, the answer is between 5 and 10 properties.
So then that goes in the second part of the question was, if you're using holding companies, you can sometimes increase the amount of properties that you hold. The other side on the holding companies wise, if you're a self-employed incorporated individual, so meaning that you own your own company that's incorporated wise, you should 100% be doing holding companies, because there's tax advantages to moving money around in that case wise. So I would say reach out to me, and we can have more of a discussion wise, and we can talk about your current portfolio and moving things around. If you're T forward, not as advantageous wise, but depending on what you're looking to grow the portfolio to, there could be some advantages. Okay, so is there a certain time frame you have to wait to make a new purchase depending on your income, or if you already have one property wise? Oh, okay. So I guess what you're trying to ask is how many mortgages can you get in a year? I think
there's no answer to that. As long as you're applying for mortgages honestly without doing any wrongdoing, and the numbers make sense, you can get as many mortgages as you want. I've done mortgages for clients that have bought 4 properties 4 months back to back. Like there's no time restriction like that. You have to strategize everything all at once, whether it's going all to one lender or you send one to every bank in the country. You have to just kind of strategize how you're going to approach that.
And that's what I find the advantage of pre-construction is that I can buy 4 properties in a year wise, but I don't have 4 properties closing right behind each other, because you can structure the portfolio so you have those closings that are spaced out. Now sometimes they, due to delays and everything, may end up getting closer together wise, but with pre-construction wise, I know okay, it's closing 2023, 2024, 2025. I've been able to lock in pricing today, but I don't have to worry about the closing to the future wise, which then segues right into Jason's question asked for Calgary. When will we have to apply to qualify a mortgage now upon completion? Be upon completion. So you'd be applying for the mortgage in 2021, summer 2021 is when it's expected to complete wise. Do you advise to buy investment properties joint with your kids? Great question. I think we're going to have differing views on this. There's many different. Amit, I'm going to go because you have the accounting background. I'll let you handle this one to start wise.
Okay, so from an accounting standpoint, there's numerous ways to transfer properties to kids. You can do it in a trust agreement. You can do it in a family trust. It can be part of your will. The main reason people have trouble getting properties over to their kids once they pass away. So let's use an example. You're 80 years old, you died, you have 10 properties, and now your kids need to take them over. And let's just say you have 2 kids, so they need to take 5 each. Estate taxes kick in. That's where you owe the government money on the taxes for the transfer. And I think to solve this problem, the easy answer is life insurance. A lot of people think that life insurance is actually for living and continuing and, you know, paying for the funeral and, you know, giving your spouse money to live. Actually, when you become an investor, life insurance is one of the most important tools you can leave your family, because upon your death, the family gets to keep that asset, because if they have to pay 40 or 50% taxes on the transfer, that's what the life insurance is used for. So that's one way to put your kids on the property without having them on the property. Now, to switch hats, the problem I have with putting multiple people on the same property is you're eating up your credit limit per person. So if you have a mortgage for $500,000 and you have 4 people on the property, all 4 people are responsible for $500,000 mortgage. And so that will hinder each person's ability to buy property 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it's a mixed bag. On one hand, it can be good for tax planning, but the solution is insurance, life insurance. And then from a mortgage perspective, it's nothing but detrimental, because it's better to have just one person per property.
Great. And for the Calgary questions, I just posted in the chat. If you go to the chat, I just provided a link to some more information on Calgary wise for those people that are interested. Amit, do you want to put your? Oh, I did it again. Sorry, guys. It did not go to everyone. Got to switch off to all panelists and attendees. Okay, there we go. There's the Calgary information. Amit, do you want to? Everyone's getting an email at the end of this. But Amit, do you want to just post your information in the chat quickly, wise? If some people can't wait for the
Done.
For the email, I know some people get excited because the email usually goes out tomorrow once we edit the video and everything like that. But that's all the questions. We finished up in an hour. That makes me ecstatic, wise. Looks like the majority of people stayed on throughout the call. So thank you so much for everyone coming on. Again, you'll get a recap of everything. That'll get to your inbox. You'll have my contact information, Kyle's contact information, Amit's contact information. We'd be happy to speak with any of you further, wise. If you have any questions about that, you can schedule a meeting with us. Kyle, thank you for the time and moderating. Amit, thank you for the time and helping educate people. And we'll be here again next week. So if people want to come back or invite some friends, we just like to educate and see people grow their wealth.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Talk to everyone later. Bye-bye.